Welcome to the BBC News at 10 Our Top Stories. It's been confirmed that the killer that killed Anne Widdecombe was a targeted attack. As the man and mother has been arrested because after 24 hours after CCTV footage was found getting in a vehicle for the date of the murder. We're going to hear from the police as well and have several reports and continue for more on her investigation. Also tonight, UK launches ferocious strikes on Iran and impose blockades to Iran issues oil warnings. Also tonight, fresh warnings, UK warnings of wildfires, Gloucestershire, Derbyshire, the Village District, Essex, Sussex, Ulster, extreme. Can you shut up? Ulster, extreme wildfires. Also, a COVID inquiry into PPE equipment during the COVID pandemic. The wife of the man that almost got sucked out of an airplane speaks up for the first time, and also England prepare for their match against Argentina tomorrow.
Come on, did he just pull his shirt? Oh, come on, did you see the pull of the shirt, you shitty rat? Are you just so cunt? Did you see that?
Well, welcome to the BBC News at 10. I'm Keegan W. Top headline. The killer that murdered Anne Widdecombe.
He just wrestled him to the fucking ground.
It's been announced that it was a targeted attack on Miss Widdecombe. She died last Thursday in her home in Devon. It comes less than 24 hours ago that a brand new CCTV footage was found of Megan at the vehicle the day of her murder. Police confirmed it outside New Scotland Yard. We will listen to the police interview, but first this report from Yasmin Watson. That's this report.
Come on, stop having a mic and get on with this game. Come on, and show off, are you, pudding? Crystal Palace. Bye.
Dad,
Show off.
thing, don't you? I don't know what the difference is between that fucking teeth. What is the big difference? Just imagine if we get in a final. So actually imagine if we face a Sunday, we get there. No difference, you still got to piss me in your mouth. Well, let's hear what the police had to say outside for court.
I'm here to provide you an update on a case that has very much dominated the headlines since the first news broke last week of the shocking death of Anne Widdecombe. Firstly, as you will understand, this incident has had a deeply distressing impact on Miss Widdecombe's family, and we're doing all we can to support them alongside our colleagues in Devon and Cornwall. The thoughts of everybody at counter-terrorism policing are with them at what is a very challenging time. As we confirmed yesterday, Counter-Terrorism South East are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe. This is due to new information and evidence coming to light following the arrest of a 28-year-old man on Saturday in South Yorkshire. I know there will be lots of questions about what that new information is, but this is a live investigation, so I'm limited on the details that I can give. However, it is clear that this was a targeted attack. We are still working to understand the extent of any planning or preparation and the motivation that sits behind that attack, and I do not want to comment further on this at this stage of our inquiries. Extensive searches have taken place at an address in Rotherham, and scenes remain in place as that activity continues. We have also been granted a warrant of further detention, which means the suspect can now be held for questioning for up to 7 days under the Terrorism Act. He remains under arrest on suspicion of commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism, as well as on suspicion of murder. This is a complex investigation, and there are multiple lines of inquiry that we are pursuing expeditiously, including digital forensic examinations. I am very aware of the significant levels of public interest in this case, given that Miss Widdecombe was such a high-profile political and public figure and familiar to many. I do not intend to address every bit of speculation we have seen, but I would like to use this opportunity to remind the public that investigations of this type are complex and new information can emerge as officers progress their inquiries. And we intend to release further information when it's available and when it is appropriate to do so. So please allow us to do our job thoroughly and carefully, and think before sharing any unverified information. It is important to remember that this is a murder investigation following a brutal attack on a 78-year-old lady in her own home. I want to ensure that our work is conducted sensitively and considers the impact of what has happened. I would like to end by reassuring all of those who knew or knew of Anne Widdecombe that our excellent teams of investigators are working incredibly hard with the aim of securing justice for her and her family. So please, if you have any information that you think might help us with this investigation, please contact the police. Thank you very much.
So that was Lawrence Taylor, the head of counter-terrorism police, speaking outside New Scotland Yard. Let's go straight back to our correspondent Dan Whitehead. And Dan, confirming many of the things that you said, the police are going to be searching the address. They have more time to do that. They have 7 days now with this suspect, and also pleading with the public and all of us to not spread misinformation. Communication has been quite a key part of this investigation, hasn't it? Because the story has changed from when you first covered it last Friday to a 26-year-old to a 28-year-old being arrested and then not being terrorism to suddenly it being suggested that it's terrorism. The communication is quite key, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, lightning speed is how the Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall described it. I think it was on Sunday, and that's very true. I mean, we're on day 6 now. It's nearly a week since Anne Widdecombe died inside her property on Dartmoor, and in that time, we have had someone arrested 12 hours later, released without charge. We've had other police forces involved. We've had raids on properties 270 miles away, and now we've had counter-terrorism police taking over this investigation. That has given it a focus in terms of the new charge, which this 28-year-old suspect. So I think the concentration really starts in Rotherham on Saturday night, 9 o'clock in the evening, when that 28-year-old British male was arrested at that house. And he, of course, has been in custody since then. The news that he was re-arrested came on Monday. We're waiting for clarification exactly when he was re-arrested. That's the time that starts for the 7 days that they now have to continue questioning him on 2 sets of charges, one on terrorism charges, one on suspicion of murder. The top line this afternoon coming from police is that they can confirm that this was clearly a targeted attack. That is significant because in those early days there was speculation, was talk of whether or not this was a bungled burglary of some sort. But what has clearly emerged is that there's nearly 300 miles of travel involved for what is now understood to be a targeted attack with some planning and some preparation. There was still no update really on the motivation, and Lawrence Taylor didn't want to be drawn on the speculation surrounding that. Of course, this is a difficult balance for counter-terrorism police, given the length of time now that this is going on. It's clearly a complex investigation with a huge appetite for information amongst the public. They have to tread that line to not jeopardise the investigation, which continues. As I say, there was a Q&A, an off-camera Q&A, just before that statement we've seen outside New Scotland Yard. Some of those questions revealed some quite interesting answers which we can bring you. First question was this an attack on Reform UK? The party, of course, we've seen the party's, Anne Widdecombe, of course, was a spokesperson for Reform UK before she died, and we've seen Nigel Farage and various members of the party come out. And there's been a lot of focus, of course, in the last 24 hours on politicians' safety, both serving MPs and those who have retired. Lawrence Taylor saying we are working through what the motivation was for this attack, and we're working on a number of inquiries. So not addressing that question about Reform UK. How much planning went into the attack? We are aware that there has been some preparation and planning. I won't go into details. This hasn't been declared as a terrorist incident. We are investigating terrorism offences in parallel to the murder investigation. That's a clarification. Interesting question as well, asked if her appearance on television the morning of the attack, I'm not sure if it was the morning.
Alright, that's it. I'm canceling the trip to the resort. We don't need that anymore. Babe, look, we have the pool, we have the chairs. What else do you want?
Things are nice, right?
Babe, those things are sick.
Resort style.
Let's go live to Exeter, where the Police and Crime Commissioner of the Devon and Cornwall Police, Alison Hernandez, is speaking following the murder of the former MP Anne Widdecombe. Let's listen in.
And I've been given assurance that there's been a smooth handover from Devon and Cornwall Police of the investigation to counter-terrorism. There's been quite a bit of commentary about the way that Devon and Cornwall Police have communicated during the early stages of this case. But as the Home Secretary said yesterday, it is not unusual that in a fast-paced investigation, more information comes to light and changes the nature or the character of what the police are dealing with. Since beginning the investigation, I've been briefed by the Chief Constable regularly, and I'm confident that Devon and Cornwall Police has provided a substantial and professional response to Anne Widdecombe's death. I'm particularly grateful to members of the public who have provided information and assisted officers in progressing the investigation. My thoughts remain with Anne's family and friends, and I've been touched by the many stories that I have heard from those who lived close to her on Dartmoor. Whatever you thought of her politics, Anne was an exceptionally likeable character. When I visited the scene on Sunday, I was impressed by the efforts being made by the police to speak to residents and address their understandable concerns. I'm sure the impact of this major operation has meant that some people have had to wait longer than they would expect for routine services or have not yet had their issues resolved, and I apologise for that. But I have been assured that officers and staff will be returning to business as usual over the coming days, which are also expected to be particularly busy with 2 final legs of the World Cup and the start of the school holidays. That's all I have to offer you today, so thank you very much. I won't be taking questions, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you for your exceptional coverage of the information that's been shared so far, and I will say, dealt with in a very professional manner, so thank you very much.
I'm Lawrence Taylor, Assistant Commissioner of the Head of National Counter-Terrorism Policing. I'm here to provide you an update on a case that has very much dominated the headline.
Not where I thought that was going.
I'll take it off at 11. Yeah?
Okay, we're gonna go live again to Devon and speak to Sarah. Sarah, good evening. Tell us more. Because the police, a couple of police people have been speaking. Lawrence outside New Scotland Yard, and then that female officer speaking in Exeter. Tell us more, because they've been talking about, because we know now that Anne's murder was a targeted attack. Tell us more, Sarah. Okay, Sarah, thank you for that. Was Sarah Keith Lucas. I mean, Sarah Keith Jones, sorry, Sarah, thank you. Next. The US have started launching fresh attacks to Iran, and even attacks near Tehran. It comes after the confirmed that Iran has had to have a massive oil warning. Let's go live to David O'Connor. David is our US correspondent. He's in Iran tonight. Sorry, not David. Daniel. It said Daniel. Tell us more about these strikes that the US. I don't know. Tell us more about these fresh, brand new strikes that USA are doing at Iran. Tell us more, Daniel. talk to me about this so-called oil warning, David, and is it going to impact Iran in any way, shape or form?
The US naval blockade of Iranian ports in the Gulf is due to come into force right about now. As we come on air, the US has launched a new wave of strikes against Iran. Let's go straight to the US and speak to our correspondent in Washington, James Matthews. Evening to you, James. He was the president who said he would end wars, but this one seems to be never-ending.
You're absolutely right, Matt. Yeah, we're seeing escalation in the period formerly known as the ceasefire. We've seen it for the past 3 nights. We are seeing it again right now as the US reimposes this blockade of Iranian interests in the Strait of Hormuz. Within the past hour, its military commanders, they've posted on social media and they're saying this. At 3 p.m. Eastern Time today, US Central Command forces began launching an additional round of strikes against Iran to continue degrading Iranian capabilities used to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes are taking place as American forces prepare to resume the naval blockade against Iranian ports and coastal areas. The blockade, it says, goes into effect at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, Matt, Iran, for its part, it has been targeting US bases in Bahrain and sites in Jordan in the past couple of days. The United Arab Emirates, it's saying that 2 of its ships were hit in the Strait of Hormuz. 1 crew member was killed. So we are seeing a rapid descent, I think, back to conflict. It all fits the evolution towards an attritional warfare in which I think war itself is the only certainty. Negotiations are stalled, and we see next steps that aren't necessarily taking us anywhere in particular. We see a step backward, actually, in the case of Donald Trump, a spectacular climb down in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, he was saying that he was going to charge a 20% toll on cargo using the strait. That was a surprise to many people who pointed out it contradicted the position of his own administration. It was also, also didn't sit well with the politics or the legal ground required, not to mention the logistics. Fast forward to today, 24 hours on, Trump is now saying that 20% will be paid in investments in the United States by Middle East states, he says, who have been asking for the cash to be paid that way. So it's all something of a mystery. Quite what the detail is in all of it, he's not made clear. But I think what he has reinforced very much is the impression of a US president not in control of events, but rather bounced by them.
Next tonight, UK wildfires. There's massive wildfires happening up and down the country in places like Derbyshire, Gloucestershire, Essex, Sussex, and even at the Lake District, where it comes just a week on since wildfires started happening across Europe. In Portugal, Spain, and even France saw wildfires. Tonight it comes after a 20-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of arson in connection with one of the wildfires in the UK.
Fire began on Sunday. 2 people have been.
I've said it on many country. In the last 24 hours alone, the wildfires are already having an impact on the population, especially it is a very
Friends. Goodbye to expensive monthly network bills. The Global Satellite Consortium has launched its 10th generation AI-powered Starlink terminal. Unlike
As the smoke relentlessly billows from these burning Peak District moors, the earth and wildlife beneath is gradually being destroyed. The fire service and mountain rescue teams are working together to try to stop this fire at source. That's why we've got one of 2 helicopters here, which are effectively doing laps of this reservoir, Torside Reservoir, collecting water and taking it to the top of Tintwistle Moor to try and douse those flames. These pictures, taken almost 3 weeks ago, show the fire in its early stages, covering around 400 square metres. Now it's estimated more than 640 acres have been burned.
Yeah, it's been quite terrifying.
For those watching the fire edge nearer, it's an unwanted spectacle. Phil helps to run this water sports club at the bottom of the hill.
We are keeping close eye on the wind direction. Yeah, there is a concern. There's lots of flammable material around here. It's very dry.
The smoke prompted an early school pickup for parents, the dry heat showing no sign of abating.
I think it is a good decision because you can't keep 30 children locked up in a classroom with closed windows.
3 miles away, firefighters remain at Doveston Reservoir, 3 days after videos on social media appeared to show fireworks being lit in the area. Today, a 20-year-old woman's been charged with offences including aggravated arson.
The ground is tinder dry, so it is spreading. We've got high temperatures, which have been maintained throughout the rest of the week.
Elsewhere, the flames have come and gone. This stretch of Western Nature Reserve in Southampton is now a charred wasteland. But with no rain on the horizon, places like the Peak District remain at risk. Authorities urging visitors not to add to a workload that's already weighing heavily. Jonathan Brown, ITV News.
Volunteers describe conditions on the moors above Greater Manchester as apocalyptic as fires and moorland groups battle to put 2 wildfires out.
Well, the fires continue to burn, with smoke drifting for miles and miles. Poor air qualities force some schools to close and is affecting places as far away as the Wirral.
This is Dovestone, right now, where firefighters are still working hard. Earlier today, a 20-year-old woman appeared in court charged with aggravated arson in connection with that fire.
And moorland at Tintwistle is also still ablaze this evening. Anna Joseph sent this report from Higher Swineshaw, halfway between both fires.
Well, as you can see behind me, a massive operation is still underway to try and take control of these wildfires. The fire on Tintwistle Moor has been raging now for nearly 3 weeks with no end in sight. Joining me now is Richard Bailey. Richard is from the Peak District Moorland Group. You've been up on those moors. What's it like?
Absolutely horrendous. So we've been involved with wildfires since 2018, Saddleworth, which was just over the hill. This is apocalyptic. The amount of vegetation, the amount of peat that is burning, the smoke is really choking. It's very dangerous conditions.
Is the end in sight?
I don't think so. We've got various control lines which we're trying to contain the fire, but the fire keeps leaping because of these fierce winds and the temperature. So, no, we need rain, and that isn't coming anytime soon.
There's a team of about 20 volunteers currently working up there, and you're working in shifts, aren't you?
Yes, we are, yes. Just simply, we started on Sunday night, realised that the fatigue was massive, and we've decided now to go in shift patterns, so working day and night, you know, along with the fire service who are on site all the time.
Thank you for taking the time to join me.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Well, Richard has actually spoken to me about how valuable all the donations have been from the community. We've had people giving meals, bringing water, and there's been a real coordinated effort at a local cricket club in the area. It really is a sense that the community are coming together to try and help, and I spoke to the manager of that cricket club earlier today.
That's devastating.
Duties.
To continue for many areas this week. Emergency services warn the hot, dry weather is increasing the risk of uncontrollable fires. A 20-year-old woman has appeared in court charged with aggravated arson relating to an ongoing fire at Dovestone Reservoir in Greater Manchester. That's just one of several places in the UK that has seen wildfires break out in the past few days. Lauren Moss reports from Greater Manchester.
A helicopter loaded with water to try and douse the flames. Saddleworth Moor has been burning for 3 days. More than 60 firefighters are tackling the blaze, the dry weather and wind creating difficult conditions.
These fires can be caused by many natural means, but also we've heard the risks of using disposable barbecues out on these moors, or lighting small fires, or carelessly discarded cigarettes. And the phrase "spreads like wildfire" is there for a reason.
Police are investigating reports fireworks were set off near Dovestone Reservoir on Saturday evening after footage was posted on social media. A 20-year-old woman has appeared in court charged with aggravated arson. The landscape is just one of the challenges for firefighters.
Water is being pumped up from the reservoir and up and over the moors to try and stay on top of the smoke and the flames. But it is an uphill battle, literally, and the wind is also making it incredibly difficult as the fire just keeps spreading.
There have been at least 19 wildfires across England and Wales since the weekend. 10 miles away in Tintwistle in the Peak District, a fire that started 3 weeks ago escalated again, and a major incident was declared yesterday. While in the small village of Polterton in Derbyshire, a fire left houses and cars coated in ash. In Durham on Sunday, an area the size of 14 football pitches was ablaze. Another fire broke out at Blackwater in Hampshire. In North Wales, people living in the village of Capalillo near Conwy Mountain were allowed back in their homes last night after being evacuated. Hundreds of acres of land was consumed by the fire.
Peg! It's scary times, to be honest with you. We've lost nearly 300 acres in the Sucklands area, the Conwy Mountain, so it's a big area of grazing and wildlife, birds, you know, a lot of devastation.
The warnings for wildfires remain across parts of England and Wales this week, with the sun scorching the ground in unrelenting hot weather. Laura Moss, BBC News, Dovestone.
The government has announced that it will hold the biggest home defence
Next, a COVID inquiry. A COVID inquiry finds almost 10 million of PPE was wasted in the UK. That's happened across many hospitals across the UK. After a lot of patients that suffered were in hospital with COVID could have survived, but a lot of people died because of it. This report, Alia has this little report for us.
This is yet another damning indictment of the government's.
Thank you, Elliot, for that report.
Chaotic mismanagement. These were the people who were responsible for supply lines and procuring PPE when the country needed it most. This 279-page report lays bare just how ill-prepared the government was and how badly it handled securing vital supplies during the pandemic. This module deals with procurement. This was absolutely crucial in making sure that the country was protected. Health workers were guarded against this deadly disease, and patients had access to the medical equipment which would keep them alive. Well, this report says it simply wasn't prepared, and the country struggled to cope. Baroness Hallett, the chair of the UK's COVID-19 inquiry, says the government spent almost £15 billion on PPE. And of that £15 billion, it wasted £10 billion on stock that simply wasn't fit for purpose. We all remember the images of those nurses wearing black bin liners, care workers wearing plastic bags because they didn't have the protective equipment they needed to look after the sick and the dying. Now, this report finds systemic failures, inadequate planning, delays in getting the ventilators and the vital testing equipment that the country desperately needed. Baroness Hallett says the country entered the pandemic with its PPE stockpile in a perilous state, without enough vital supplies and with large quantities of expired equipment. There were no plans in place for emergency procurement or distribution. And we were, she says, simply not ready to compete in the global market race, and we were over-reliant on one single country, China. You'll remember too the high priority lane, which the government said would mean faster access to these vital goods. Well, that was heavily criticised as being unfair because suppliers with government connections received favourable treatment, undermining public trust at a moment when it was needed most. But she does stop at saying this report does not identify cronyism or corruption on the part of ministers and officials. They simply got it wrong with the introduction of this VIP lane. Now, this report does not feature evidence on the PPE firm MedPro linked to Tory peer Baroness Michelle Mone and her husband Doug Barrowman. They've been ordered to repay £122 million plus interest to the government for providing faulty PPE at the height of the pandemic. Mone and Barrowman deny any wrongdoing. There is some praise for the country's business and science sector for rallying to help. There's also praise for the army in providing vital logistical expertise. But ultimately, this report lays bare just how underprepared the country was in the face of this pandemic. Ultimately, we wasted millions and millions of pounds, and this led to unnecessary delays. That means many more lives could and should have been saved. So the headlines will always be about the £10 billion in wasted taxpayers' money, the undermining of the public's trust. But ultimately, what this boils down to is the fact that there were people who could have been saved. There were people who should have been better protected. Health workers who were on the front line, key workers who needed that vital PPE equipment, and ultimately patients who needed access to vital life-saving equipment which didn't arrive in time. But the fact that the business community pulled together, there is also praise for the private and public sector partnerships that work together, and there is a list of 12 recommendations which Baroness Hallett says must go into the next pandemic to make sure that we are prepared.
COVID-19 pandemic in the procurement and distribution of PPE, ventilators and testing equipment. It marks a halfway point in the publication of the inquiry's reports, a process which I intend to complete by this time next year. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, the world entered a desperate race to secure vital healthcare equipment and supplies. If governments failed to procure the required equipment and supplies, key workers, including health and social care workers, could not be properly protected. Their lives and the lives of those for whom they cared were put at risk. Governments, including those of the United Kingdom, were engaged in a fierce competition during the crisis. International demand skyrocketed, prices rose uncontrollably, and global supply chains buckled under enormous strain. At the same time, the emergency stockpile of PPE and other equipment available to the UK was inadequate to meet the huge surge in demand. In the global battle to procure equipment and supplies, the UK was simply not ready to compete. The UK entered the pandemic with inadequate and untested plans to increase its emergency procurement and distribution operations rapidly, and the bodies responsible were caught off guard. In the face of this fundamental lack of readiness, ministers and officials were forced to improvise. Untested emergency procurement and distribution systems had to be developed within days. Against this backdrop, decision makers were confronted with an unenviable choice: put large sums of public money at risk to buy equipment at the speed and scale the pandemic demanded, or
Next, Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham gave his first ever speech inside the House of Commons just days before he becomes the next UK Prime Minister.
His commitment to the
Christmas. Andy Burnham is set to become the new Prime Minister on Friday. We're just going to listen to a little bit of his first speech in the Commons this afternoon.
feel...
So this is Andy Burnham's first speech in the Commons. I'm going to hit that in a minute. Quickly.
Tempted to start this speech by saying, as I was saying 10 years ago in this place, but it feels fitting to be here tonight, and particularly to be with my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, because I remember very clearly at the conclusion of the second Hillsborough inquest how he worked with me as part of the Shadow Health team back then to draft the original bill that was presented to Parliament, and tonight is before this House. It does feel tonight like life is coming full circle, and as we pass this momentous piece of legislation, a piece of legislation that will change the way this country thinks and works about justice, it truly is a rewiring of the state and a passing of power from the authorities to the hands of ordinary people. And it is happening because of the Prime Minister's commitment to a country based on justice and fairness, and we thank him for that. He has honoured his commitment to the Hillsborough families, and what this House will do in passing this bill tonight is rebalancing the scales of justice so that we have justice for ordinary people going forward, and that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is some legacy indeed. We have all recognised that we simply would not be here tonight were it not for the dignity and the determination of the Hillsborough families who are with us in this chamber this evening. They, supported by the wider group of campaigns as part of Hillsborough Law Now, I do want to recognise their lawyers, Pete Weatherby, KC, and Elkin Abrahamson, KC, who are with us this evening too. Inquest, Deborah Coles, who's with us as well, and all of the people who supported the campaign. This is the reason why we are here. But might I say also, we are here because of the city of Liverpool, represented so well by my honourable friend, the member for West Derby, who has been the parliamentary lead on this bill and has been entirely true to the people of his city, as has my friend Steve Rotherham, a former member of this House, Mayor of the Liverpool City region, who also carried forward this campaign to this point. I cannot describe my pride, Madam Deputy Speaker, in being in this House tonight to see this bill plant the values of the city of my birth at the heart of this country. And that is something of huge and profound significance that has been brought about by the Hillsborough families, and we recognise the significance of that tonight. As Steve Rotherham has said, the Hillsborough law can't do any more for the Hillsborough families. Indeed, it will do much more for those who come after them, but that's what makes their campaign so special. They've done this for others, not for themselves. And those others include, and it's very important to remind the House of those other campaigns who we hope now will be lifted by this legislation as we pass it this evening. We do think, as the Prime Minister said, of the Grenfell survivors and families this evening, and I'm sure all London members will want to echo that, who are still waiting for justice and accountability over 9 years after the Grenfell fire. We think tonight of the Primados families who have fought so hard for fairness, supported by my honourable friend, the member for Bolton.
Hang on. When it comes to Andy Burnham and Sir Keir Starmer, both were speaking about the Hillsborough law that has been passed on today.
been turned down for a loan, we may have more options. All credit history considered. Same-day loan approval. Cash in 1 hour. Apply here.
Order, order.
I did it. Yeah, I didn't get down in time because I had this thing on.
You didn't have to have that thing on, I just thought it'd be better for you.
Yes, but I didn't get down in time. Let's just hear Sama.
I call the Prime Minister to move third reading.
I usually have to ask the King for consent, so that was... Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be now read for a third time. Madam Deputy Speaker, I still remember the first time I met the Hillsborough families with Bishop James Jones. That was nearly 15 years ago as the Director of Public Prosecutions. It was a humbling experience. I was taken aback by their courage. To be able to campaign after such unimaginable loss, it floored me. As a father of teenagers who come to watch football with me, I do not think I could do that myself. But then, to keep going and going and going, as the state deployed all its power to obstruct justice and truth. And that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a stain on our history. And yet, keep going they did. And we are here today because of them. And some of them are with us in the gallery today, and they were with me in number 10 just this afternoon. Indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, that has always been the motivation for this bill. The Hillsborough families fought so that no family like theirs should ever have to endure and suffer what they went through. What they have done.
Right. Trying to listen to that.
This isn't cold now, Charlie, it's just damp.
Yes, because we're going to do it then, isn't it, to bed?
Right.
Can't keep having late nights all the time.
I've still got 8 minutes before bed.
8 minutes, I know, but we've
I
got
could
to
have got through that in 8 minutes if you just let me get on with it, and then you could have had it at 11.
Well, that's it. But I need to charge it now. Mum's going to do your inhaler. And when it got dark, well, she's going to do her pillows, I'm guessing, before the inhaler. And then go down and come back
Charlie
up.
wants it on all night now as well. I still think it needs to be a bit colder.
Doesn't matter.
We'll do yours in a minute when we come up.
So if that's the case, Sam and Anna been speaking about the Hillsborough law that has been put in place. England next. England are set to face Argentina tomorrow night in their semi-final in Atlanta. We first have Atlanta. So, what a good evening from Atlanta. So, England, we've heard from Jordan Pickford from the media. Jordan Pickford has spoken to the media ahead of this semi-final against Argentina. Are we expecting any changes to Tonsuko's team tomorrow night?
The one that's not been used. The one that hasn't got Dad's phone attached.
And we've seen England fans descend onto the streets in Atlanta ahead of this. How are the fans looking forward to this semi-final? Because it's going to be a fantastic night and good night for England fans, won't it, Ali? We're eating in tomorrow, chow. We're eating in because we got. We're eating.
Yeah. Look what happened. Yeah. Well, it seems, I don't know. It seems cold, but not cold enough.
Put a bit more water on it then.
Yeah, but what happened last time? It went everywhere. Why would it go everywhere? Because I actually soaked the whole thing. And look what happened. It went all over the thing. Oh yeah, lovely.
Okay, I know.
Probably ridiculous.
I know fast food, thank you, Annie. We can watch England's semi-final against Argentina in Atlanta, some BBC One and BBC iPlayer. So good luck to England, there's some BBC One for you tomorrow night. Good luck to the boys in Atlanta. You're interrupting, babes.
Well, Dad wants you to do this now.
Won't be up in a minute to turn it off, Keith, and do your
Come on.
For myself, for our whole team, have a great evening.